Hello, everybody. This is the Forever Classic Podcast, and I am one of your just fantastic hosts, Joe Simpson. And tonight I am joined by the one and only Zach. Zachary Snyder, how are you today?
I am doing good, man. How are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm feeling more awake than I did basically all day now. Work was rough. On the tired side, I woke up a little bit. I don't know. I think it's because I did tea instead of coffee today, so I just never got the kick I needed. Because I tend to stay up too late on the weekends. But I got home, got some good calories in my body, and a little bit of more caffeine, and I'm like kind of pumped for our topic tonight too. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
And then, but unfortunately, due to some family stuff and some things going on at home, Alex is unable to join us. Nothing bad or anything. Just he's traveling right now between locations, so he's not able to be here for the recording. So, but he's taking care of some stuff, and it's gonna be all good. Just was down here, got to see him a little bit the other day, and watch him open his Steam Deck, and so we had some fun chatting about that, and then. He left before before my group came over for some Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, it was a pretty good weekend. How about yourself?
Yeah, pretty busy weekend. We took our niece to this local convention, like their little pilot convention, which was cool because she was interested in doing a little bit of something, like Otakon, like Katsucon sort of like thing. So this ended up being like a test one for the town, and ended up being a nice way to take her into something and be like, would you be interested in a much bigger event that's like this?
Yeah, I've done something similar with my daughter, where we've done some local stuff, a little bit smaller, to start off with, because the thought of trying to navigate like PAX East with an 8-year-old is kind of intimidating. And chances are it would be by myself, so it'd just be the two of us, which also could be like super fun. Just the two of us hanging out doing nerd stuff for a few days, trying out different games and whatnot. But there's also just like this exhausted, like, part of me as an adult wants to like go off and be on my own and not be responsible for another human for some period of it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But yeah, they're cool. When we did that was our whole day Saturday. So
Very nice.
So we had her and her mom and dad and her sister. We just all hung out for the whole day, and then yesterday was D&D day stuff. So I ran a D&D campaign for the first time, but we'll talk about that in a bit.
Again, thank you everyone for listening. Zach, if someone listening wanted to find other ways to support us, how would they go about doing that?
A few avenues that you can support us in, and they are fantastic for the most part. I mean, there's always our Patreon. So if you go to Patreon, you can just support us at a low tier as $1. Every little thing goes back into everything that we're doing here. You can support writers that you like to read from on the site directly. We have links to their various Ko-Fi, PayPals, Venmos, whatever they've put in, because they've scaled it to each one. They've taken their own picks, and we've added those things in so that you can support them directly as well. And honestly, just going around, our YouTube, giving us likes and subscribes. Those are always super helpful, because especially once we reach that first 1,000 subscribers and can get into the next set of things, which I believe opens up like monetization and a few other things for us, as we're starting to build video content. Just kind of following us on social media. Those are big things that give us lots and lots of staying power, and it looks nice to anybody who's involved in anything like bigger than us. It's going, oh hey, look at these guys.
So, yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And then I know it's typically our job to do the reviewing, but if on your particular podcatcher of choice you're allowed to leave a review or X out of X stars or whatever, go ahead and let us know what you think. That helps us a lot in helping other people find us as well, because your reviews help people who perform searches on a particular podcatcher, because there's something you might mention that we don't mention in the description, that then gets pinged by a search result. So then it pops up in a way that maybe it wouldn't have otherwise. With that out of the way, I think it's time for a Geek Peek.
Geek Peek.
Yeah, so if you're new to the podcast, if for some reason this is your first episode, the Geek Peek is just a quick little look-see into what we're up to and what we're into since our last recording. So Zach, why don't you fire us off, get us started with what you're geeking out about, and give us a peek.
Okay, so first thing is I've definitely been finally starting the Fire Force anime, and I've worked my way through season 1, and I'm working my way through season 2. I actually really like it. Interesting enough to keep me entertained, and just different enough that I'm hooked to being like, okay, yeah, I like this. It's something to watch. I'm not like overly invested in it, and it's a good time.
So the Fire Force, I think what's somewhat interesting and notable about Fire Force is, wasn't there like an anime film also about like fighting fires around the same time that this one was picking up steam?
I'm not totally sure.
If you were to say it, I'd probably recognize it. Promare.
Oh yeah, shit.
Promare is also about like fighting fires. It's a little bit more supernatural, where I think is Fire Force a little bit more straight up just fighting fires.
No, it's supernatural, like
okay,
hardcore.
So they're both just like the fires are crazy, and in some sort of supernatural way. Okay, yeah, Promare's definitely got like a sci-fi supernatural angle to the fires as well, and the way that they handle it and even fight it, and the tools that they have to do that. I think Promare is an amazing movie. So, and I've heard good things about Fire Force. It's just funny that they were both picking up steam about the same time.
Yeah, I know, right? That's really funny. I forgot all about it being like on the same area of time.
Yeah. So what is it about it that like sticks out to you?
Couple things, because it's made with the same, not the same art style, but it's made with a lot of the same like touchstones as like Soul Eater.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there's like lots of fan theories that like the main character of Fire Force goes on to create the Soul Eater universe.
Oh,
which I haven't gotten there, so I don't know all the pieces of it, and I didn't want to read all of that at the time. Like, I don't mind being spoiled on a lot of things.
Soul Eater, that's the one where people bond with weapons, and weapons have like personalities and things, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, weapons are just people, and they just shapeshift into the weapon for the Reaper.
I think I got as far as meeting Excalibur. Overall, I enjoyed it. I just, for some reason, never kept watching past that point.
It's a little funky at the beginning, and then it just like it goes like off the rails.
To specify, I heard about it the most when I was in college. So like 2010 is when it seemed like it was peak popularity, at least from my perspective. It's possible that I am completely wrong on that, but so is this the same studio as that then for Fire Force? Or is it just a similar look?
Yeah, the same author.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Tsushio Kubo.
So that's kind of where the people are fan theories are coming from then.
Yeah, there's a lot. It gets really, really crazy as you start winding the two pieces together.
Interesting.
Who's who and what's what.
So, anything else going on in your geekdoms? Your little quick peek at?
There's a really funny TikTok creator that I like to watch has been doing a segment called the Shonen Smackdown, and it's sort of how Dragon Ball Goku's like, yeah, let's have a big tournament of power, and about fucking destroys all the universes. Well, he's like, let's do this on a bigger scale. Like, what if Goku had the power to ask for the tournament, but with all the Mega Dragon Balls? So now it's all the shonen series thrown into multiple islands, and it's
Interesting.
two heroes, two villains from each shonen universe having a big smackdown battle and teaming up, being weird and quirky. So I've been super digging that for just because it's funny and fun. And then most of my Sunday, which I was explaining about running D&D, like I've DM'd a lot of stuff before in version 3.5, so it's been a long time. But our DM of our weekly Strahd and Fable game has he we needed to get some sort of intro game for our friend Aces. He gave me DM privileges in a game using all of his stuff in Forge. So we use this virtual tabletop with all of his like source book access and like campaign access to have like all the things that we could need in game for the most part. And we were able to run this virtual tabletop, which was super cool to use. So I got to design a couple maps with things, draw walls, play with lighting, add ambient sounds, add doors, secret doors, locked doors, traps, place enemy pawns on, and move around. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun making it because I like doing tedious things like that. But which will tie in a lot to the today's episode. But yeah, no, it was just a blast being able to like do some stuff with it and see how everybody did things because I haven't got a DM in 10 years. It was very exciting for me to just be able to do that. And for my DM so they could have a little break and enjoy stuff.
Very cool. Yeah, I spent 8 hours on Saturday DMing combat, 2 encounters in the Curse of Strahd campaign. It was basically encounter, short rest, encounter, and it was a total blast. But that is not my Geek Peak this time around. My Geek Peak is I bought a freaking Steam Deck, and it is very cool.
Oh, yeah.
I've always, like, as much as I've had consoles and part of my background in media creation, I have a computer that can play games and play them well because I needed to be able to do 3D renders well and all that jazz. I guess I grow uncomfortable or tired or, like, I lose interest when I'm sitting at my computer and I'm just trying to play a game for a long time. Or even
Okay.
like on the TV, I feel like I'm preventing other people from being able to use it. But if it's a handheld device, I can just take it anywhere. Starting with the Game Boy Color and then the Game Boy Advance, DS, 3DS, I've always had at least one handheld. Part of why I play the Switch so much, almost exclusively in portable mode, is because I just like to chill out on a couch and hold a screen close to my face. And like, even though I have a laptop where I could essentially get a similar experience, it's not quite the same. I got to have like this lap pad and a mouse and like using the keyboard, and it's just not the same experience as playing a game on a Switch or a Game Boy or what have you. So the idea of having that power of a PC or of a mid or low tier gaming PC in my hands in a Switch form factor really appeals to me. And I've got a lot of games in my Steam library that I had a strong feeling that if I could play it on the Switch, I would have played it more by now. And so getting the Steam Deck, I immediately loaded up some of those games. Like Tales of Arise is a perfect example where it's this action RPG, and just sitting down at my desk and playing it, it's a little bit different, a little bit awkward than, a console living room experience. But just being able to like chill out on the couch while having a movie or background show, and just grinding away some action RPG, pausing the show for cutscenes and whatnot. I'm just having a blast with it. And then a couple other games. Sunset Overdrive is not technically like Steam Deck verified or whatever, but it plays incredible. It just works perfect and it looks amazing. And it is a very fun game that I've never played before. I think a friend gifted it to me last year for my birthday or something, and I'm finally getting around to playing it, and it's great. It's kind of got a similar sense of humor and attitude as like the Borderlands franchise. I don't know if you're familiar with Sunset Overdrive at all, but
Yes, yeah. Actually, I really enjoy Sunset Overdrive. I've only played it like once or twice because I never owned it, but it was such a fun
yeah,
thing to play.
and so it really promotes moving. So it's not like a cover shooter, sit and bunker down and take your shots. It's a if you do that, you will die because all the monsters are going to catch up with you and to attack you. So they want you to be doing these like grinds on rails and switching around and bouncing around while you're shooting. But then also, from my experience so far, the only way you get ammo is on the guns you aren't actively using right now. So when you run out of ammo on the gun you're using, you switch. And then you start getting ammo for the gun that you just switched from. It really promotes movement and using your variety of guns. But one of the things that got the biggest smile from me is like shooting these like exploder ones that run into you and explode or get near you and explode. If you shoot them, they explode like ooze all over the place. But like the goop inside of them spells out pop before continuing the explosion. So it's like pop and then it like finishes the explosion, and it's just got a really good sense of humor, really strong design sense. I kind of knew going in that I'd probably like this one too. And then finally I played a little bit of Cyberpunk, streaming it from my desktop PC over my home network to the Steam Deck, and it worked great. I didn't seem to notice any major hiccups in the connection, no delay in the controls. It's a little bit of a small screen for it, so it's definitely one of those games where you want like a bigger screen to just see everything in, because that game is fun to just look at stuff in. But yeah, overall, I'm loving the Steam Deck. I haven't dove into the emulation side of it all, other than installing some emulators, but and so maybe that's something I'll dig into a future Geek Peek. But yeah, Steam Deck, pretty cool. The last thing I'll say about it is I ordered it, and then less than 2 hours later, it went on sale.
Oh no! I missed what happened at the beginning of that conversation that we were all having.
So yeah, I was like,
they just fucked up your order, not that it had gone on sale.
No. I ordered it at like 10:30 a.m. and put it in the Discord. All right, Steam Deck officially ordered. And then less than 2 hours later, Justin was like, "Did you see that the Steam Deck went on sale?" And I was like, no. And I reloaded up Steam and it was like 10% off. And I was like, what? That's like $50. I would love to have $50 off my Steam Deck. I ended up contacting them and asking like, hey, I missed the sale by like 2 hours. Would it be possible to get the sale price? And what they ended up doing is I paid the same amount, but they gave me the difference in my Steam wallet. So even though this is the year of me not buying new games, I have a Steam wallet balance that I haven't bought any games for myself, but I bought a copy of Sunset Overdrive for a buddy of mine because it was like $3, and then I bought Little Gamer her own copy of Stardew Valley, so that when I want to play my Steam library, if she's playing Stardew Valley, I'm not immediately just kicking her off her own computer or her file of the game. So she can get that going on her own account, and it's all good to go. But I can run Stardew Valley now on my Steam Deck, and we could maybe sit next to each other and play instead of being in separate rooms. So that could be fun.
That would be cool, actually. Yeah, that's a very cool implementation of it, being able to do the multiplayer from side
Which
by
I
side.
think is a perfect segue into our topic for today. And I did not do that on purpose, actually. I just realized that I mentioned Stardew Valley at this time. But topic for today is farming and crafting in video games. There's a lot of games where farming is the primary mechanic, or crafting is the primary mechanic. I didn't want to limit it to just that, because there's lots of games that have those mechanics in it where that's not the focus. But I imagine that a lot of those games are still going to be brought up and talked about in this discussion. So I guess to start us off, what are your like thoughts surrounding farming and crafting in games. And I guess the thought process behind this episode is living in Minnesota. It's been snow and gray for the last like 6 to 8 months, and springtime is happening, and people are planting flowers, and we're starting to see green again. And it got me thinking about like farming and harvesting and planting seasons in video games.
So I'd have to say I really enjoy this type of game. It falls right in line with like colony sim or like management games. Typically have an overlap into this, and those are two of the genres that I really enjoy playing a lot of.
Yeah.
They're tedious. There's lots of things going on at once, and while that can be overwhelming for some people, most of those types of games come with a pause feature, so you can set up a bunch of things to do things and unpause and then pause and set up a bunch of things to go on and then start time again. You know, the pause meaning, you know, more of stop time rather than pause the game.
Right.
But they're really fun, and I like having a lot of things go on at once, so these games are very satisfying for me because I can just keep track of so many things and be very, very deeply into it, and it just will eat a lot of my time when I'm playing them. Or in some cases, being able to kind of set them up to do stuff while I do other things because they're time consuming. It's, you know, planting gardens in some things or planting plots of fields in other games. They typically aren't an instantaneous like startup, and they take time to begin whatever their process is of growing or producing. So those are things that you can set up. You know, I have like a 2-monitor system, so I'll set it up on one monitor while I'm watching a show or working on some things or writing something on the other. And I can just kind of do this multitask. So that's the big draw for me in this type of game. And
now, do you tend to stick to things that are a little bit more like stylized in their approach to those mechanics, or do you prefer a more realistic experience? Like, I guess, do you lean more heavily towards like Harvest Moon, or are you straight up like a farming simulator fan?
I am not like the farming simulator fan where I want to drive a combine through the field and gas it up and do maintenance on it.
It's like, wild to me how popular that game is.
It is ridiculously popular. It is so ridiculously popular.
Like, it's unexpected. Like, it's cool that it's popular. Like, I'm glad that the game exists because clearly people enjoy it. But it catches you off guard when you see the sales numbers.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I remember people talking about that, and then you look at the numbers and you're like, there's a lot more people talking about this than I ever thought would talk about this.
Well, I think also the idea is you see the game Farming Simulator, you know, like, and I immediately start thinking of things like Ant Sim or Bee Simulator or Goat Simulator or, you know, all these other like
Goat Simulator,
all these other like simulator games where it's like no one's really like taking this seriously, right? But no, Farming Simulator is a whole community and scene. It is bonkers how popular it is. And there's even like competitive events with Farming Simulator, and they are actually kind of exciting to watch.
It's probably been like 10 years now when Farmville was like the fucking thing on Facebook. Yeah.
I didn't even think about like idle games on like social media or phone. Oh my goodness. I never really got into it because
I did not
wasn't a
either.
thing, but you just mentioning Farmville just like unlocked some like apparently maybe some locked away trauma. I don't know.
Well, everybody that was like into Facebook games like Mafia and stuff like that, like in particular, my mom is a big fan of all of those things, so I've been inundated in them all for a long time. Circling back around Farmville. It's like people kind of graduated from Farmville in the last 10 years to like Farm Simulator.
Well, I think there's also that, but I think like you look at Farmville, the super casual, like relaxing sort of check the boxes each day sort of experience on social media, and maybe you look at other options out there and you find Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then really get into these farming mechanics or these management mechanics of all these different, as you said, pieces and things happening at the same time. And I could definitely see that pipeline of Farmville to Farming Simulator.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the straight jump Farmville Farming Simulator, but there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and if it scratches your itch, like,
Yeah.
it's an easy slide right into it from something like that. Like, being outside of that, I'd see it a little bit harder, but unless you were looking for it particularly.
Right. Have you seen some of the setups people have where they've like custom made controller setups? So, like if you're really into racing sims, you probably have like pedals and a racing wheel, or even
yeah, like the modular controller
but
setup things.
They have these like levers and pulleys and arrays of buttons and things, and they have it set up exactly how it is like the combine in the game. And they have everything set up and pushing, so they're just trying to make it as real as possible. They don't even play with a keyboard or mouse or controller. They've like got this like simulator, like the racing wheel of a combine, basically.
No, I haven't, but you know what? That doesn't surprise me because
it's really cool, actually.
In a lot of these games, like, they're not perfect 1-to-1s. I'll say that before I say the rest of my statement. Is that people can use these to kind of teach themselves the controls. It may not be 1-to-1 like for exactly what they're doing in a lot of things. Some people can set them up almost 1-to-1, like getting really, really nitty gritty with it. Like you're saying, like building those like full setups.
Yeah.
So for people coming from like a gaming background or anything, like any kind of interest in that, you can now, make a full like simulator, for this. I don't think the next thing I'm going to say is going to hit everybody at the same time. But every time like these sort of things come up, I have flashes back into Metal Gear Solid stuff, because the whole premise of like the second game is your character was trained in VR missions to be a soldier, to be the best soldier. So he's gone through all these virtual simulations to be as good as like your original protagonist. And in real life now you're getting such in-depth simulation that you can basically train yourself to do these things without actually having to be out there doing it, to the point you feel comfy enough and you've built this muscle memory so that instead of going out into something and flailing around, you can kind of go out and pick things up very quickly and then just jump into the real thing. Almost like massive line produced worker or skill.
If you were able to utilize this for some real life training, you're not putting your exceptionally expensive farming equipment at risk of damage because someone who's inexperienced is behind the wheel, or your property or your animals or your family or your workers aren't at risk because someone inexperienced is behind the wheel. Like, if you could do forklift simulator and actually get trained on a forklift by the end, you're not risking someone driving a forklift through a wall, because guess what? That forklift will just go through the wall. It won't stop. It might be only going 8 miles per hour, but it will go through that wall.
Yeah, forks take out people a lot more than people outside of understanding how a forklift works.
Yes, forklifts are... There's a reason that you should really be trained on a forklift properly before you jump on behind the wheel of one. But I think for the same, similar experience, could you imagine just jumping on a combine?
No, I don't want to touch a fucking combine because there's so much shit going on.
And you hear horror stories of people like getting horribly injured on these machines, and it's like, that they looked away for 1 second. Farming equipment is dangerous. This is a way to experience that without like removing that risk, which also, is tempting to be like, well, I'm just going to drive this combine through that barn since there's no real consequences. Funny enough, someone literally just fired up Farming Simulator 22 on Steam and it popped up in the corner.
Perfect timing.
Wonderful. But you said you lean more towards the like stylized simulation of farming.
Oh yeah, for sure. If I had to say some like top things for me, like on the farming side, the big one I've been playing recently has been City Skylines. While that's not necessarily specifically for farming, uh, I have in the Industries DLC for it, which you create an entire farming industry and you create the logistics train for that industry. So while you're not necessarily doing the farming yourself, you're controlling how it's produced, how it's stored, how it's shipped, how it's used in making things in your town, and how it's exported to other towns for money.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that. Like making this like complicated logic train work extremely well. And then occasionally, gridlocking my city because I triggered something where I ran out of what I needed to use and imported like thousands of farming materials. There'd be that, and then of course, like the king of them all, Minecraft. You can't not talk about that in this because that covers both bases.
Right.
But you're building your farm, you're getting your wheat each in-game day or several minutes, hours, because they're I don't remember what the tick value is for farming in Minecraft, but you have so many different things, and then you're crafting them all together into different foods and recipes.
Right.
And then stuff like RimWorld, which is a colony sim, but you make your plots of land, you put your vegetables down into your plots, or like your cotton or your trees. You can even farm trees, which is good. That way you have a renewable source of wood for your colony, and it takes time. Weather can affect them because RimWorld likes to try to kill you and will send storms or blight your plants, and you have to like nip the blight out before it takes over everything else, and you just ruin your whole crop that you've been growing for a couple cycles.
Basically, the game mechanic is, I see you're trying to survive. What if you didn't?
Yeah, it's lots of putting out little fires. There's some cool stuff that happens too, but that's the more exciting part of it. Because otherwise, you leave it on autopilot. You set it up. This is what I want it to do, and the game will be like, "Yo, your plant's got some blight," and you've got to be like, "Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit." Go up there and start cutting the blight plants. Go up there and start cut them, cut them.
Hurry! I'll agree with you. I lean more towards the stylized simulation of farming and crafting in games as well. When farming or crafting is a part of the primary mechanics of a game, I don't enjoy it. It's not for me. It's the reason why I probably only put in about 50 to 60 hours into Animal Crossing, is because I was just like, well, I've picked peaches for the 100th time this month. I'm done. But that said, the few times I've played Stardew Valley, I've played it for 6 hours straight. Like, there is like a gameplay loop, a calmness, or like you just kind of get into a zone where you just sort of lose track of time. And this goes all the way back to in high school. I think my earliest experience with like a farming or crafting game would be Harvest Moon, on whichever Harvest Moon was on the GameCube. If there was more than one, I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly which one. Me and my friends would just sort of like take turns playing Harvest Moon. We had one file, and we just passed the controller around and talk about what we wanted to do and figure out what gifts to give people for like the dating side of it, and go in and get our resources and try to upgrade different aspects of the farm and stuff like that. And that was a very like casual, relaxing, social experience with my friends. Outside of that, I don't think I've really gotten into a farming game since. And it's in terms of crafting mechanics, if they're a part of a game where it's just like a piece of it, like adding materials together to make a weapon more powerful in Diablo or Champions of Norath, where you take gems and just put them in weapons, or you can combine items in Divinity Original Sin 2 to make new items. So if you take some nails and combine them with a pair of boots, you don't slip when you walk on ice anymore. And so there's some like really clever game mechanics and problem solving in some of these games with crafting mechanics. But again, I think when there's a big emphasis on it, I start to lose interest. So part of the reason I didn't get into World of Warcraft, despite being a huge RPG and fantasy nerd, is because I'd be sitting there going, I'm not the farmer. Why am I picking your pumpkins? Like, I didn't play World of Warcraft to farm pumpkins. I wanted to play World of Warcraft to fight dragons and hordes of enemies and like go on adventures. But it seemed like everywhere I turned, I was running some sort of tedious task for someone else that wasn't like epic feeling. And I realized, oh, that's the game, is performing these tasks to level up and get this gear and to craft these items and to do all of this stuff. And it just didn't appeal to me. I just want to get to the action and get to the good stuff. And the tedium is just, it's not for me. Despite the fact I've had overall positive experience with some of these mechanics, like Valheim is a really cool take on the survival crafting genre in, cooperative building these cities and these mechanics and defending it from hordes of trolls and like little hobgoblin guys and but you're constantly improving and getting new technologies and things like that so that eventually you build like just a straight up city. But when I sit down to play a game, I'm typically looking at other games other than Valheim, and I don't know why I'm not quick to just jump into Valheim, despite the fact I did overall really enjoy it.
That's all fair. Like, I mean, it's definitely more on the focus of it is not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's like, I want to be the hero. I want to wield a sword. I want to cast a spell. I want to experience a narrative. And I don't want to do chores. And that's sort of what it feels like to me.
That's fair. See, I don't like games that feel like a chore, but for me, chores in games
don't feel like chores.
And your chores in games aren't the same thing. Because
right.
there's a point, I think, where everybody just kind of goes, okay, this is now a chore, and I don't enjoy it anymore. And that's a different threshold for everybody.
Right.
So that makes your game not fun. But, like I was saying earlier, these are my kind of games. You get into things like wanting to experience a narrative. Like for me, like I enjoy lots of stuff. Like I have more stakes to do the things I'm doing. So games like 7 Days to Die, which are like a survival crafting horror game. In this case, you're trying to survive zombies. There's not an emphasis on farming. There's a very big emphasis on crafting because you want to get the things to craft to survive. But you can also start growing your farm instead of going out to try to like pick things up from everything and scavenge food from like supermarkets. You can start growing a farm and then have a reliable source of food as a reward versus having to go put yourself in danger every day, every other day in game to keep your character going. Or you were talking about having the like nice relaxing time. Like that's why I like Animal Crossing, because I can sit down, harvest some fruit, plant my various flowers and things, and then just leave it for a while. And it runs in game or real time in real world time. So as real world time ticks away, I can come back to it and pick it up, do a few little things, work on some stuff, and kind of go back about my business. But then you get into like, I guess Rust would be an interesting take into it, because it's also like survival crafting, but I don't play PvP Rust like most people do. Me and my brother found a fun little server to play PvE on. So for everything that we're doing on it, we craft all of our things to do everything we want with, or we make little farms and we grow all the stuff we need for like food and like crafting like special stuff. Like we can go out and gather all the things that we would need to do scavenging wise, but we get bonuses if we grow berries and turn them into teas that then boost all the things that we get from those. So we have an incentive to do them rather than you have to, which I think works better in a lot of cases if it's like, hey, you don't have to do this, but if you do, you get some really cool stuff. But you don't necessarily have to do that either, because you can go buy it from something else. Somebody else has put in the work and you're just paying them for it.
And it's somewhat interesting to me that I don't get into these types of games because I'm a long time Civilization fan. I love the tedium and the turn by turn gameplay loop of Civilization. And there's at least once a year I go, why did I ever uninstall Civ 6 or Civ 5? And then I install it and play it. And then 12 hours later go, oh yeah, this is why I uninstalled it, because it takes over my life.
Yes. That was me with cities recently, because I had something glitch with some of the mods I had, and it gave me like the reward for being like the highest reward for population in a city that it gives.
Yeah.
But I wanted to reach that by myself, like get the 75,000 like citizens living in a city that's not breaking down. So I recently did that, so I'm not like locked into having to play it, but I would come in and play a little bit every day, just kind of make tweaks and like improve my farming industry, improve my ore industry, and then like make the town a little bigger, make people a little happier. And I could just set that up and be like, okay, and then just leave it play while it ran through its motions.
Yeah, I think sometimes for me too is I get very satisfied by endings. And a lot of farming simulators or just sims in general sort of have an ongoing experience, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Where they aren't quite, there's no wrap up. It's just sort of, you use it as sort of that wind down, that relaxing period. But I want it to be towards something. And when there is no ending, it's not towards something. It's just sort of, you're doing it for the sake of doing the thing. And for some players like yourself, or a lot of players, it's seemingly so, particularly with like Animal Crossing and back in the day, Harvest Moon, doing it for itself is all that people are looking for. They, at the end of a long day of work or school, they come home and they do their Animal Crossing chores. They are successful in something, and they get something done, and it gives them that sense of accomplishment. And
dopamine boost.
Right. And I guess I don't get the same dopamine boost from them, but at the same time, like I said, the few times I've played Stardew Valley, I found it like fairly engrossing, and I played it for like 6 hours straight. Played it 2 or 3 times, but I never really continued playing it. I jumped into it, enjoyed it, and left it.
Yeah, no, that's fair, because you get these open-ended games like Terraria and Starbound. For me, would be a good example, because like Terraria has like, you've done everything in the game, but it doesn't end. Like it has a wrap up to like the quote unquote story, like the overarching things you can do.
Yeah.
But then you can just kind of keep going. But you know, you're farming food and different things by plowing a field. And you're doing the same thing in Starbound. Starbound's just universal rather than one planet, and it's end game. Like once you've finished everything, the story's done, and then you're just out there living. And in its case, like you can build a colony and have residents, but its main thing is there's a quite aggressive hunger mechanic in Starbound. So you're highly incentivized to grow a field, go and craft cooked dishes. You know, you're making your risottos and you're making your bowls of rice and like your popcorn, like all sorts of stuff. And for some people, that's all they want to do is just that little, like, okay, I'm just gonna farm up and have my food, and that's gonna be my end game. Just eat and, I guess, colony sim at that point. But before that,
Yeah.
it's, you know, you get crafting because you're crafting your way up to be the best, and then it just doesn't stop. Yeah, so at that point, games get boring for me. That's where things become a chore for me, is after there's nothing left.
You're sort of maintaining rather than building.
Yeah, so there's no more growth. I kind of like fizzle off. I guess that would be a good way to point where my like chore threshold is.
Okay.
So if I can't build up into anything else and like chase another goal, and like all the goals are complete, and there's just, I can just kind of complete the the maintaining loop just ends it for me.
So what's like I guess for you, what would you say is like a standout experience in a farming or crafting game for you? Like what's like a story that you think fondly back on uh and just like love telling that story of something that happened in a game?
I'd probably be split between two. Like one happened in 7 Days to Die because back before all the weird stuff that happened with it, I had a bunch of our friends on. We all played on console, and we were able to build a little base, like be surviving the zombies, like taking out little rooms. But every day in seven or every 7 days in 7 Days to Die, you're attacked by a horde.
Yeah.
So we're like finally get to the point where like, yes, we've got all the things, we've got our farm on the roof, and everything's good. We're gonna be able to do all this survival, and we got just obliterated by such a huge horde. Like we were like, okay, we're out of the way, everything's good. But the game comes with physics, so if there's not enough structural integrity, your structure falls apart.
Oh no.
So the zombies broke a bunch of our structural integrity that we thought was okay enough, and it wasn't. So we lost our entire farm after spending the whole better part of the day, like at 7 dudes just running around this map, putting everything we can together into these things, like splitting up the chores. Like, okay, you're working on weapons, you're working on armor, you're working on like tech for like bikes and cars, you're working on farm, you're working on crafting. Like, we got this. Just kind of like getting materials and like being like, yes, we've accomplished the thing. And then it was like, oh no, we've lost the thing.
Yeah.
And then the other standout for me was just more for me is playing RimWorld. The panic over blights and stuff are one thing. You kind of learn little tricks to kind of keep it away from like losing all of your crop. But the game's so random for its storytelling because it has like curves based on how good you're doing and how bad you're doing. It wants you to kind of like middle out because it wants to keep a story going,
Yeah.
but it will try to kill you once you're doing so good to try to set you back so that you come back down into this like buoyant point.
So it's sort of
Just
a constantly evolving, changing difficulty.
Yeah, because you're not. I mean, you're telling your people to go do these jobs, but you're managing them like you would manage a sim. They gotta have their fun. They gotta be satisfied in crafting. They gotta be well fed, have some sleep. But ultimately, like you don't do their like interaction, so it's all socially
Right.
interactable stuff. And occasionally, people will be like, "Oh, mental break! Like now you can't do anything with this character. They're just on this mental break of whatever they're doing." So you get people who are like pyromaniacs. So they just start setting shit on fire. And there's nothing worse than having like somebody break and then decide to start a bunch of fires in your food storage or like your clothing like warehouse. Like you build a little box for all your clothes and everything's flammable, so it just gets out of hand real
Oh
fast.
no.
Yeah, and then you're set back like maybe the planet or the map stuff that you're set up on in this RimWorld run has almost nothing you can get, and you had to grow everything, and then nothing hurts worse
Right.
than having it all caught on fire and you having to wait and go through all the growth cycles again. So you have such a high stake that may not even be something you think about until it's just kind of like, oh no, oh no, it is that is the bad thing. Like I didn't realize that was like a possibility of having to be set back so much of the things I had because of this. It was not even on my radar. Is exciting for me, and that's happened to me like so many times.
Yeah. I would say for me, it's been in Valheim. Uh, I think the day 2 of my charity stream or charity event this last year, it was just Valheim for like 12 hours. And it was me and a couple of friends just playing it for 12 hours and seeing how far we could get in things. And but just in general in Valheim, getting together with friends or even my daughter to plot out and plan what we're going to build and where we're going to build and where we're going to explore and venture next, who's going to do which tasks and things like that, and working together. entertainment wise during the stream, it probably would have been better if I was the one doing the exploring and like fighting stuff. But I ended up being the guy who just mined for like 2.5 hours straight. And so it was just 2.5 hours of me just hitting rocks, which might not be the most entertaining streaming content. Aside from the fact that my friends would suddenly start screaming because they came across a big old troll, and I was mining because we needed the stuff to improve a bunch of our gear, and they were trying to figure out where the next like big checkpoint was or where our next build location was going to be. And of course, there's like encountering things together and um, running away or like plotting out a really like cool place to build something. Or I had we were building our first portal, and I had intentionally I had the stuff to build it on my end at our main base, and we had a lakeside or like a waterside property sort of set up where we had a dock that went out into the water, and then like a I guess like a tower coming up from that, so we could see up out all around our base. And I went to the top of that tower and then flipped the portal so that it would dump them out into the water. And so I said, all right, I got it built on my side. And then I hear, all right, cool, we got it. We're and they were being attacked by something. And so they're like, we got to go. And they ran through the portal. And then they were both like, what is going on? As they, as they went through the portal and immediately started falling and then landed in the water. And I think I just busted up laughing because that was the whole point, was to flip the portal so that it spit them out in the air over the water. And I think that was kind of towards the end of our stream. But yeah, it was just like, you can set up different things, and I haven't gotten particularly far in Valheim where you're like building like stone structures and stuff, and like literal castles, but there's definitely a lot of potential there. And I think the Viking theming appeals to me a bit more than something like Minecraft, in terms of like building stuff and fighting things, when it ultimately at their core they're kind of the same game, you know. But I think just like this Valhalla sort of idea of it being the afterlife and Viking themed and exploring these forests and things like that, it's a little bit more focused in its design sense, whereas Minecraft is like staring at a pile of Legos and not really knowing what to build or do with it, you know. Whereas Valheim is, say, a set of Legos from a specific set or kit, and it gives you some direction on kind of what you're supposed to build or try to build out of those pieces. And I think I just appreciate that. And I know there's a lot more to Minecraft than what I'm giving it credit for. It's just, its overall aesthetic and gameplay loop never appealed to me. And something about Valheim, it just does. I don't know what the difference is, but I assume it's because it's Vikings.
Yeah.
But do you have any closing thoughts about farming and crafting in games? Any recommendations that people should check out? You're definitely the connoisseur of the topic.
Yeah, I really enjoy this stuff. I'd say, like, if you're interested in farming and crafting and you want some story and you're looking for something like Stardew Valley, I would highly recommend Kinseed. It's something we reviewed really early in the life of Forever Classic. I got to play with it while it was in alpha, and it is significantly different than it was in alpha, but it is probably the closest thing, next to something like Graveyard Keeper, which has way less social interaction than Stardew Valley. Also, I don't believe they've completed Gravekeeper because I think they stopped production on it, and it just is what it is now. But Kinseed's still, it's fully released. It's out of early access. It's a full game to play, and it's like
It's got a very strong Stardew Valley feel in its visual design.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like it
The
came out fully recently, December 6th of 2022.
Yep, yep. It was very recent that they finally finished and put out like this is the version, and now we will build like improvements from here.
It
But
does
it's
say recent reviews are mixed, but the overall reviews are very positive. So I don't know if something happened recently that.
I don't know either.
But
Something might have happened in the last couple months that I'm not aware of.
but yeah, it
It's
overall
like
has
a
very positive reviews and a recommendation from you.
yeah. So it's the world of the game is like what would you consider like the story like Mother Goose or an old lady in the shoe?
So like Grimm's fairy tales or storybook sort of.
Yes, but less dark. I mean, kind of dark too. I mean, there's
Like a
some
nursery rhyme.
nursery rhyme. That's the way to put it. It's
Okay.
like a world of nursery rhymes.
Okay. Cool.
Um, so it's very cool if you want to have that like indulgent story. You're farming, you're crafting, you're interacting with the world. I would say you should totally do that because it's also kind of relaxing and cute. You
Cool.
want ultra relaxing? Of course, Animal Crossing is going to be the king. But I guess that's where my two big recommendations would come from for anything.
Sweet. I guess on my side, I like I said before, if you're probably not going to catch me playing Farming Simulator anytime soon. When it's the focus of the game, it's not my cup of tea. Even going back and playing like Harvest Moon, which I have very fond memories of, probably would be kind of bored of it somewhat quickly. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I should just give it a go and see what happens. Maybe I'll sink 100 hours into it this time. I don't know. But for me, it would be things like the crafting mechanics in RPGs where you don't necessarily have to do it, but it's there to experiment with and have some fun with. Like Divinity Original Sin 2. I hope Baldur's Gate 3 has some of that cleverness built into it as well.
That'd be
But
cool.
also, if you're looking for a similar experience to Minecraft, like if you've spent a lot of time in Minecraft and are looking for something different, but kind of in the same vein, if you haven't tried it yet, Valheim is a great experience and is super fun with friends. And just like with Minecraft, you can set up like home servers so that people can jump in and out of them whenever they want, rather than requiring someone to be specific to be online and things like that. And there's a lot of potential there. And I think it's still technically in early access, but even in early access, it's already received a free expansion.
That's cool.
Or
I'm
maybe
glad they've
it
done
did
that.
finally fully come out, but it came out with an expansion already in I think it's called Mistland. But yeah, it's like $20 on Steam. And I think you can play it on Xbox too. Overwhelmingly polished. It's still considered an early access game. But it's yeah, it's a good time for sure.
Awesome.
It's also a
Good.
beautiful game. Like it's kind of got some simplified graphics, but man, there are moments where you're just sort of like, this is stunning, legitimately stunning.
Hey, bad graphics don't mean that some modders won't go out there and make it super awesome if they don't. I mean, look at the like real world Minecraft mod, like texture packs. Everything looks like flowing water and like rippling trees.
Yeah,
It's just absurd.
the most I've done with that is I checked out some of the ray tracing worlds that are available in Minecraft and just sort of wandered around and looked at them and interacted with things to see how light bounced around differently in them, which was pretty cool. A fun way to pump up my 3070 Ti and see how it ran and did things. Takes a performance chug, that's for sure, but it's cool looking for sure. But I think with that, we've hit everything we really need to talk about. It would have been fun to have Alex here and have his take too, but I think having someone who loves it and then someone who's about it gave some really cool, fun perspectives on this. So with that in mind, thank you for listening and joining us today on your preferred podcatcher of choice. And till next time, have fun, stay cool, and play some games. Bye.
Bye.